welcome, Danny. Glad to have you here today. Got a lot to go over. I mean, we have like your whole athletic career here in Hopkinton, as well as Paul Smith's and like all the lumberjack stuff you've been doing in recent years. So, a lot to cover. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, of course. So, when did you first start playing sports?
So I started when I was obviously really little, like walking, like most kids should, in my opinion. But I started with HISA through Hopkinton when I was about 5, and then I've been playing sports just about every day as much as I can until I am now.
Yeah. So, what were some of the first sports you ended up playing?
I started playing more like the traditional sports, like soccer, basketball, baseball, some of those. I was really big into soccer when I was really young.
Yeah. So, did you have like a particular sport you enjoyed the most when you were younger?
Soccer. Soccer was definitely one of my sports I really enjoyed. I played it all year round until I was much older, and then I ended up switching sports.
What was it about soccer that just like grabbed your interest at a young age?
For me, I just loved. I mean, when I was really really little, I mean, like every kid, you watch the sports. They all just chase the ball around.
Yeah.
But I liked the team atmosphere, and I mean, you were always outside, which for me, I'm a pretty outdoorsy kid. But I just liked the team atmosphere, and like it was kind of a really competitive sport. For a lot of kids at a young age, it's a very it's one of the more popular sports. So that was a big thing for
I
me.
think it's like one of the most, if not the most popular, like kindergarten sport in the country. So that's good. Other sports that you were interested in, and like just your interest in those sports. If you want to explain a little bit about that and what aspects of the sports you liked about them.
Yeah, baseball for me was definitely one of the earlier sports. I liked that, like it was also another team sport. I was very big into the team sports. Then I picked up golf at a really young age, at about 7, 8 years old. And then when I started that's how I got into college golf and high school golf. And I didn't actually play that competitively until I was a junior in high school. But that's one of my favorite lifetime sports. I still play to this day.
Who was it who got you involved with golf?
My grandfather and my grandma. My dad plays, and he's also very good. But my grandparents got me into golf through like a golfing camp / school when I was a young age, like 8 to 12 ballpark.
Oh wow, I feel like that's a sport that like a lot of people try later on in life, but not necessarily at a young age. Like it's a very very popular sport among adults, but not as much among kids. Was there a lot of other kids who you grew up with who ended up playing golf?
There was a lot of kids in these camps that I did, but these were small camps up in Vermont where my grandparents live. I spent a lot of time playing, and not a lot of buddies back at home played, but I did when I was in high school. I started to get some friends into golf, and they started to really like it. But golf, in my opinion, is one of the hardest sports. It's really, really mentally challenging, and it's not always the most athletic sport. You don't have to be the most athletic, I'm sorry. Compared to like some sports like basketball or soccer, like those are usually dominated by very good athletes. So, yeah.
What other sports besides golf did you end up playing?
I ended up running track when I was in middle school, and then I transferred to golf, and then I played like a lot of indoor soccer. I played out spring, summer soccer, and basketball, and then that kind of got me through my high school, middle school career. Was more of the traditional sports.
Gotcha. So what made you choose track over baseball? Because you were into baseball initially.
Honestly, I was very big into baseball, and I would consider myself a good baseball player. The big reason why I transferred was when I was in middle school, I had a crush on a girl, and a girl was on the track team, and she convinced me to go over and run track. And then I actually found out that I was very good at track also. So I ended up sticking with track, and I was always making the what do they call it, the all-state track, or I was always in some of the top guys in our division in certain events. Javelin was one of my bigger events. But yeah, that was one of my big events.
When you first got to high school as a freshman and you saw all these older guys than you who are all, inevitably when you're a freshman, they're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster than you. What were your thoughts? Were you intimidated by them in the different sports, or were you excited to learn from them and go out there and compete?
I was definitely pretty nervous at first.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as you should be. I mean, we're like the freshman, you're at the bottom of the barrel. And with me, I was much, much smaller then. My freshman year, I was probably 5'2", 120 pounds. I was a really small kid. So it was really hard for me to kind of stand out. So I started to learn some some smarts. I remember through basketball, I learned a lot through Zach Signor, Henry Yanakopoulos. They were really smart and they were upperclassmen, and they had really good like basketball IQ. And then I learned from them. I mean, and I just learned a lot of different sports. It wasn't always about the biggest and the strongest kid.
Yeah.
There had to be some IQ into play and how to play the game. But I definitely was intimidated at a young age to start, as being how small I was compared to most guys. So
Yeah, it's good that you were able to learn lessons from those guys. Just talk a little bit about like your high school career, starting off with like freshman year and the outcomes of the seasons, your development as a player and as a person with all the different sports, and just go through from freshman year to senior year.
yeah, so I know I'll start with the fall. I ended up playing soccer my first 2 years, my freshman and sophomore year. I was a swinger my freshman year when we won the championship. I never really saw the field, which was fine. I was a freshman. I understood my role. I was more of a practice player to make the guys better that were on the field. So I really took my role as being that of the practice player to really try and excel the guys that played. And the year we won was awesome. It was really electric on the field. But other than that, when I went to my sophomore year, when I talked to the coach a little more, I was going to be playing more than I did, and it just didn't turn out for me the way I wanted.
Yeah.
I was fighting with a position for another kid that was older, that was better. So it was we were in like a tough situation because we also had a switch in how we were going to play the game. So we were going to run 2 guys up top, and I was going to be one of the other guys up top as a striker. And then we changed to a different offense where we played 1 guy up top. So when we changed to that, it kind of took a factor into what position I was going to play. So I ended up not playing as much, and then I transferred to golf. And the year I transferred to golf was my junior year. Dave Chase convinced me to go over there, and then I ended up finishing the year. We ended up winning the state championship that year, the first time they ever done that, and we upsetted the Messinic boys that were undefeated for like 4 years running, and I ended up winning the first place individual that day at the state championship. And then when I went into the individual tournament as winning it was a 2-day, I ended up losing, getting 4th. And then my senior year, we had the most dominant golf team by far. We were dominating with guys as I was running the 1-man. Cody Dexter was a really good golfer running 2. Kobe Marshall running 3. Evan Farinini running 4-man with his brother. Andrew running 5. And I mean, we could all switch out between positions. And who was really the best was determined on that day. But we were cleaning house on most teams. And then the year that we were supposed to have the championship, they ended up getting rain delayed, and then they canceled it. And they never let us compete for it. And we ended up tying another school and one meet, and we should have never tied that meet. We had a really bad day, and this team had a really good day, and they played a lot of easier teams. Yeah. So they had a really good record, and we had a tougher record. And then they had 1 extra win on us, so they ended up winning the state championship by default because they had 1 more win than we did. But we were the more dominant team by far. So it definitely hit us pretty hard that we couldn't win, which sucked. But I went to the individuals, and I ended up placing 5th. But I kind of blew it. I was winning the whole tournament, and then the last couple holes I blew up. But
yeah, that's just how sports works. I mean, it happens every day.
Yeah.
I mean, you have athletes who sometimes they have their best day, and other athletes who just don't have their best day. Let's get into winter sports. I know you were a big basketball guy for a lot of years.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed basketball. It's another team sport I really loved. Golf wasn't much of a team sport. But I mean, freshman year, basketball is a really hard competition. There's a lot of guys that try out, or girls that try out in their divisions. And, but for me, I made JV. I was starting JV as a freshman. We had a lot of freshmen and sophomore guys, which was cool. So I was pretty happy. And then my sophomore year, I was a swinger to varsity. Excuse me. And then my junior year, I ended up starting on varsity, and we had a very good team. And then my senior year, Owen Milchick came in, good buddy of mine now, and he ended up taking my spot. He's a much better basketball player than me. I'd happily give him my spot. And so then I got moved to a non-starter, but then I didn't see as much play time. I was most of the guys on our team grew very much. So we had starting lineups with Luke Reedy at 6'6", Kevin Delgado at 6'4", Owen at 6'3", John Jacobson at 6'1". Then Shepard was our only guy under 6 foot in the starting lineup, and he was basically 6 feet. He was 5'11".
Wow.
And then Mikey Bear would sometimes rotate in, and he was like 5'8", and then I was only like 5'5", 5'6". I was really short back then. I didn't really hit a growth spurt. And so it was really hard for me to get on the court, and I wasn't really a great basketball player. I was a good athlete, but not a great. I didn't really have the basketball touch.
Yeah.
But so yeah, that was my senior year for that.
So you had Coach Signor, and you
Yep.
experienced those seasons with, you guys were close oftentimes to like winning a championship, but just couldn't come away with it. And it's been 60 years since since the first Hopkinton championship. They won 3 straight, and they haven't won since then. So it's really, really tough. I know there was a lot of years in there where you guys were close. Can you talk about
Yep.
those seasons a little bit and how they ended?
Yeah, so I remember my sophomore year was probably our closest year. We had, like I said, I was a swinger, so I got to practice with the varsity and I got to go to their games. But they had probably the most dominant team that I've seen through Hopkinton, with guys like Zach Signor running the point, never turned the ball over. Kevin McGrath was a hell of an athlete, one of the best basketball players. Kevin Delgado, 1,000-point scorer, was on the team. Dustin Rose, good athlete. Jake Tomlinson, like they had just this really, really good team. And then Caleb Yanakopoulos, of course, he was also a great athlete. And they won every game. They were undefeated. They were the number 1 seed going in. And then right as we go into playoffs against a team that was good, they had one really strong player, but other than that, they weren't that great. Messinic. We go in there and the whole team gets struck by the flu. And Zach Signor was with the flu, but he played, but he was bad. Kevin McGrath couldn't even walk to get to the game. He was out. Dustin Rose was barely able to move. Kevin Delgado was sick, so he couldn't even play. I mean, we were just struck with a bad situation. So when that ended up happening, we were forced to play most of our bench players and our swingers, which was like myself and stuff, and we weren't very basketball tuned yet. So we ended up getting absolutely smoked in that game, which, I feel really bad for. But and then my junior year, we had another good team, but we weren't really coming into it yet. We were really young. We only had one senior, which was Caleb, but we had a lot of younger guys like myself and Shepard, and I think we had 3 starters that had never really played varsity at the time, because the year before was really just a dominant 6 guys. So we kind of got put back, that I would say, and then we ended up doing really well, making it I think to the quarterfinals maybe, or the semis. And then my senior year, we had a very strong team, and we were predicted number 1. We ended up playing against the number 1 Guilford team in the semifinals because we were number 3. And when we played them, they had one kid that was a really good athlete who ended up doing really well in baseball too. But we just had too many turnovers in that game. We had a couple guys that had a lot of turnovers that took a key toll on us. So we ended up turning the ball over a lot, which you really can't do in basketball. But it was just a tough year. I mean, we were always really close. I'm hoping the boys this year can pull it off, but
Yeah.
they have some more tough competition.
Yeah, it's a really tough challenge, and it's underestimated. I mean, sometimes you think you have like a really good team, like you just said, and then all of a sudden something happens, like the flu or whatever. We've had season with COVID and everything, and everything that goes into that. So very complicated situations can change things a lot. But when you were at that point of you have to make a decision when you leave Hopkinton, what you want to do, what were you thinking college-wise in terms of not only where you wanted to go, but what you wanted to do there?
So I was definitely more interested in like becoming a fish and game warden. That was my goal. And I really wanted to be an outdoor school, but I also looked at, okay, where can I go? I really enjoyed golf. Where can I continue to play golf through college? And obviously I wasn't a D1 or D2 caliber, but I was hoping maybe I could just play at a small school for fun and just keep playing. Just something to do while you're in school sometimes. And Dave Chaith ended up referring me to Joe Sawicki's older brother, Tim Sawicki, who goes to school that I did he was a senior when I was a freshman there at Paul Smith's. And so I got in touch with the golf coach, and then the golf coach kind of recruited me to go there a little bit, and then I ended up making my decision to go there to play golf. So
Yeah, so what are you studying over there?
I'm studying what we call NRCM, which is Natural Resource Conservation Management.
Oh, that's cool.
Basically just a broad term of environmental sciences, natural resources. So you can really get a broad topic of what you're studying there.
Gotcha. How have you enjoyed the experience there, and like what are some things that you've learned and really experienced there that you don't get in high school?
I've learned time management a lot better. High school is kind of like you're kind of told what you need to do and how to take it and what you have to do. You're there 5 days a week, 8 to 3. That's basically high school. Or college, it's some days I will, like this past semester for me, I set up a schedule where I had Mondays and Fridays completely off. So I had 4-day weekends. And I did that because of my career in timber sports and traveling, so I could travel more. But I learned time management was a big one. How to really get assignments done early so I could do the fun stuff later, kind of thing. But yeah.
So how have sports gone for you over there? I mean, you started off with golf and everything.
Yeah, so I went there for golf, and I was the number 2 guy on the team. My freshman roommate was actually number 1. He was very, very good.
Oh.
Still very good golfer. And then when I was there, like I said, Tim Switzky, who's a Hawkington alum, convinced me to come try out for their Woodsmen team in college. And so I did, and I thought it was silly, like a bunch of guys chopping wood, splitting wood, doing all this. This seems silly to me. And it's not a very big sport, so I went and I tried, and I actually just immediately loved it. And then for me, I'm so competitive, I like to be the best at every sport I can play. And that was a new sport for me, and I wanted to be the best at it. And then I ended up making the team, and I made the team, which was really hard because we had over 40 guys try out. And there's 6 guys on the team, so there's like a men's 1, a men's 2, men's 1 being the best team all the way down.
Yeah.
And they keep 6 guys per team. And so we had they only kept 24 guys total. We had 40 guys try out.
Wow.
So they cut guys right away. So the first thing we did when we tried out is they sent us on a 1-mile run. And if you weren't in the first 30 guys back, 10 guys were immediately cut. They don't care how good you were at the sport, you needed to be in shape. So, and not everybody in the sport is in shape, but they're in shape enough where they could beat certain guys.
Yeah.
So I barely made the team. I was considered an alternate, meaning I was on the men's 4 bottom tier team, and I was lucky to even see daylight if I got to play or even compete.
Yeah.
And then I really busted my butt. I worked my way up, and then I made the men's 1 team by the time I was end of my freshman year, and I was a starter on the men's 1 team, which was the top tier team. And our school has a history of being the most dominant woodsman team in the country. We are very well known for that in New York. New York colleges have a lot of woodsman schools. We have some here in the New England area, but in my opinion, when they come over and then like the New England teams come over and compete against us, they can't. We kill them. We're so much better. It's a different atmosphere. It's like D1 versus D4 is how I look at it.
Wow.
And we're D1, they're D4.
Yeah.
So New York, we're big woodsman schools.
Yeah, so that's a sport that not a lot of people know how that works. Can you explain that whole process to us?
Yeah, so I mean, like, there's some things, like, you can get into it. A lot of people that are really good in the sport get into it through family. Their dad or mom did it, and then they started, which I hope one day to do with my kids, get them into it, because that's the best time to become the best, is you got to start them young. That's like any sport, soccer or basketball, whatever. You got to start your kids young. So, for me, I ended up starting right as a freshman in high school or college, which a lot of professionals that are in the sport will say you started too late, because most people will start when they're like 8 or 9. They're young, so they already have that many more years of experience on top of us by the time they get to 21 or whatever, 18. So for me, when I ended up doing that sport, I like to explain it like a glorified track, like a glorified track team. Sorry. Because you're on a team of 6 guys or girls, and then sometimes there's a men's division, a women's division, a Jack and Jill. So the men's division will be 6 guys on a team, the women will be 6 women, and the Jack and Jill will be 3 men, 3 women on a team. Mm-hmm. And how it works is when you have that setup, you end up doing like different events. There's 5 basic team events that every person on your team has to do, and it's like a relay style. You'll do like the one-man bow saw, so one guy starts and then hands it off and goes, and hands it off and goes, until all 6 members of your team make a cut and the time stops. And then there's cross cut, that's the 2-man saw. There's a pulp toss, which you got to throw 4-foot long pulp sticks through a gated, like a little end zone, I guess, like a field goal post kind of setup. And then log rolling and packboard running, which is one of my favorite events because I'm a fast runner. So that's an event where you have to carry a 35 to 50 pound backpack on, and you have to run. and you have to run. Most legs are shorter, but I'm arguably the fastest guy in our division. So I usually, and I'm definitely the fastest guy on our team, I get put with the longest leg because I can run the fastest and the longest. So I get put with the legs that are like a 400-yard dash, like in track,
Oh, wow.
or 400-meter. But now I have to carry a 40 or a 30 to 40-pound backpack.
That's different.
Yeah, it's very different. And sometimes I get blessed with running only 100 yards and they're short, but usually I don't. I usually end up having to run 200 to 400 yards on average, which is really long. And then there's different in that one event. It's like a relay style. So one guy will have to what we call tie the pack, which is it's all laid out. And it's a sandbag. And he's got to put the sandbag on a blanket, fold it up, put it on top of like a backpack, and tie it onto the backpack, and then run.
This sounds like Survivor.
It's basically something like that. And then you have to run, and then you got to do some janky handoff where you got to like take a wing out that, or like your backpack off, and then you do like a chicken wing, we call it. And then one guy sticks his arm through, and you spin off each other, and then the backpack changes really quickly, and now it's his backpack, and he runs. So instead of doing handoffs like in track with a baton, you do it with a backpack now.
So the way the course is laid out, is it like a straight line or
Nope.
is it curved?
It's super varies because usually the course is about a mile long total, and each guy runs a leg. And sometimes they're in an open field. Sometimes you run around a baseball field and through a different athletic field. Our school has a full decked out Woodsmen arena cabin. Like we have a 3-story cabin for training. Like our school takes it very seriously. So we have a full packboard course, we call it. So we run right through the woods. And I mean, the paths are only 2 to 3 feet wide. So it's every man for himself out there. So if you want to bump them or do whatever you can, you can. It's every man for himself out there.
That's cool.
So yeah, like if you get run up against next to a bigger guy and he bumps you and you go flying, that's too bad for you. I mean, you don't want to push. I mean, we're all really nice. We all like each other. We all try and win it at the end of the day. But we don't do anything like that to cheat. But if somebody did, they really could if they want to.
Is that viewed as like cheating or part of the strategy? Gray area?
It's probably a gray area because we always say that you can do that, but 90% of the time, by that point, nobody's that close because you have different people that run faster. Like we have what we call fat man legs. So like our slowest runner will usually take a leg that's only maybe 50 yards long, 30, 50 yards long. It's not they don't got to run very far because they can't run very fast or very far. So where guys like me will run the long legs. But our sport also has singles events, which means each member of the team will do one event as an individual, and then we'll do doubles events. So you partner up and do a double event. Then there's triples events where you go and your team splits up into 3 and 3, and then you do a triple event together. And all those points are scored out of 100. And let's say I do one event in 10 seconds, and you do an event in 20. Then it's a 50-point gap because you were double my time.
Yeah.
So then now I get 100 points going to our school, the men's one team, and then you get 50 to your school. And the team with the most points at the end of the day wins. So each event is valuable. Each opponent is worth 100. So if there's 17 total events, there's 1,700 total points out there to win.
Wow.
So it's like a sort of like a track team where you have to win your events and you get points for your events and stuff.
How long do these events typically last?
Well, that's a good question. Because some events will last all of like 8 seconds, and some events, depending on your skill level, will last 10 minutes.
Wow.
Now, there is timeouts. There's some events that generally will take longer than others on an average. Then there's some events, depending on your skill level, you can be way faster. I actually hold the school record in one of the events.
What event?
The underhand chop, which is an event where I stand on top of the block, a piece of wood, and I swing an axe between my feet. And I chop one half, and I turn and I chop the other half. The average college time is about 40 seconds for one kid to do it. I did it in 8.3.
Wow, that's
and
impressive.
The world record is 6 seconds. So I was 2 seconds off from the world record. And yeah, so like I said, some events are very fast. My average time is about 10 seconds in that event. So like most colleges, that is an event that we usually beat up on other schools, but they'll have one guy do it in 40 seconds. We have me and my partner will each do our own block in 25 on average. So we absolutely we've been killing teams. Like I said, the time range for each event is very spread out, broad.
Yeah.
So
So when you talk about the 25 seconds, is it like you go and then your partner goes, or okay?
so it's kind of like, since I'm the best, I anchor. So, and he's also very good. I'm not going to say he's not. He's the number 2, what we call choppers. That's what those guys are. The guys
Yeah.
that chop. So he's the number 2 chopper in college. I'm the number 1. So having both of us on the same team is great. And we competed against each other last year because he went to a different school and he transferred to our school. So, but how it works is when the countdown goes, comparator ready, this is your cadence. 3, 2, 1, go. When on go, he starts chopping. And I'm waiting. And then once he turns and completely severs his block in 2 pieces, then it's my turn to start chopping. Like I said, most teams will do it. Like, we've been doing our 2 blocks in total in 25 seconds on average. Most schools are doing it in a minute.
Wow.
So we're kind of taking them to town.
Yeah. Wow, that's really, really cool. So you think you might set the world record one day?
Man, so that's a really good question too. I really hope so, but it's really tough because there's a lot of training put into it, but it has to be the right stick of wood, the right axe. Like, everything has to be going just right for that to happen.
Wow. Yeah, really, really cool stuff. So just kind of circling back, wrapping everything up. Just what are some of your favorite lessons you've learned throughout this whole journey, your most proud accomplishments and everything?
Definitely some of the big things I learned when I was young was team sports. I really enjoy team sports. I love individual sports, but like golf and stuff, and Woodsmen can be considered an individual sport, but you can't win without a team. So, and for me, excuse me, one of the best things was getting, especially with like Hopkinton, we had a bunch of kids in my class that all really wanted to win. So we'd always all hang out and we'd play sports together throughout the summers, winters, weekends, whatever free time we had, we'd play together.
Yeah.
And we got better. So with that being a situation, I guess I learned like team sports, communication, and having trust within your partners or your teammates, like having to have somebody's back. So like you can't have one person let you down, kind of thing. So you have to, you don't want to be that person.
Yeah.
So
another thing I've heard about you is that you were especially good at helping out with biddy ball when you were on the varsity basketball team and everything. With all the younger kids, you were one of their favorite. So
I've always loved kids myself. I really do. I love watching them grow up and become good athletes. And just for me, is getting them into the young age is kind of like, for sports, is really a great thing. I love seeing more kids come through all the time and get ready to play biddy ball. That was a great thing. And their parents loved it. Their parents would love when they would come in, and we really, in Hopkinton, we try and really develop their game at a young age. And you can see through our programs, a lot of them, when we do these kids are actually really good when they get to high school. And that's why I feel Hopkinton has such great sports all the way through. I mean, we were really dominant. I remember when I was just, in high school, I think my junior year, we won 8 championships throughout our whole school. And then my senior year, we ended up winning 9. And we won 9, and we couldn't even compete in the spring because of COVID.
Yeah.
So for me, we were a very dominant school in sports, and I think that comes from a young age. And having the upperclassmen, the seniors, the freshmen, even the older kids, teach the younger kids how to play these sports. I think they get more involved because they might not always listen to their parents right away, but they will listen to their older kids, their influences. So,
for sure. What are your most proud accomplishments that you've achieved at this point?
Man, I'd probably say golf in high school. Winning the state championship and being a top 5 was definitely one of those. Playing all the varsity sports I got to play through high school. And then definitely with the timber sports field that I'm in now, being the school record holder is a big one for me. Being the number 1 ranked college guy in America is pretty cool for me. Being in the pro series at a young age is cool. But I mean, those are definitely some of the biggest things for me so far. But I mean, there's a lot of things, like I could go on for each sport and why they could be. But
all right, yeah. So just wrapping it up here, but just Anything you'd like to add advice-wise, and also where do you see yourself going career-wise down the line and everything?
I'm hoping I'm going to be doing the timber sports stuff more often. I know I'm going to be in Michigan this summer, and then I plan on going to Tasmania for a little bit, which is a small island under Australia. Yeah, they're going to ship me out there and pay me to go out there and chop and do all that
That's
stuff
pretty cool.
with a bunch of Australians. And then I'm going to potentially go to Alaska for a little bit and do lumberjack shows out there and stuff. But I mean, everything's just a wild journey. I mean, I never thought I'd be doing what I'm doing, and I'm very happy with what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I got to say thanks to Hopkinton and the sports I got in for making me a good athlete, and all the sports I've done to getting me to this point.
Yeah, appreciate you, Danny.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.